we have a new number one coming out of the weekend. USC had jumped Oregon, but just yesterday, LSU, look at him throwing up the L's with the addition of the number one wide receiver in the country, Tristan Keys. LSU jumps from number 3 up to number 1. And Steve, I have a feeling the Tigers aren't done yet.
No, this class is going to be elite in a lot of areas, starting with wide receiver. Keys is the third in the boat for the Tigers, joining Kenny Darby and Ja'Kai Anderson from in-state. And obviously Tristan Keys, he's number 1 in the country at the position for a reason. He's explosive, dynamic, exciting after the catch, tracks the ball well, can beat you in a lot of ways. He was on campus as Jamar Chase was becoming the highest paid receiver in NFL history. LSU's track record at the position excited him. Being back in Baton Rouge, being around that program, Cortez Hankton, Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly. He's a Tiger. This class is rolling. It's number 1 in the country. They want to keep it rolling. They want to keep it rolling at wide receiver. Last weekend, Ethan Booby Feaster, the number 4 wideout per the On3 industry, was back at LSU. He's a Louisiana native. He says that LSU's his leader. Texas A&M's going to try and change that this weekend. You got USC, Miami, other programs in the mix for Feaster, but it's LSU setting the pace for him right now. Jabari Mack is another top 100 wide receiver from in-state. Destrahan, Texas A&M, Ohio State, and LSU, the top 4. He said over the weekend that Texas was his slight favorite, but over the weekend it looked like Tennessee and Alabama were the slight favorite for Tristan Keys. These things are fluid. These things move fast. LSU is ripping and roaring. Jabari Mack, Ethan Feaster, 2 other top targets. Then you have Aaron Gregory, who's a 4-star from the Peach State. He's committed to the Aggies. Jalen Lott, a 4-star from the Lone Star State. They both recently visited this spring. LSU's a front runner for both, still in the mix for Gregory, one of the favorites for Lott. So this wide receiver class is ripping and roaring. In-state recruiting also going very well. They have the number 1 defensive lineman in the country committed in Richard Anderson, trying to hold off teams like USC. They have the number 4 safety in the land, number 4 player in the state, Aiden Hall, already committed. The top 2 players in the state are trending towards LSU on the On3 RPM. That starts with lineman Lamar Brown. You can love him on the O-line. You can love him on the defensive front. There are not many defensive linemen or offensive linemen in the country that have the quickness and the explosiveness that Lamar Brown brings to the point of attack. LSU's recruiting him as a defensive tackle. He was back on campus last weekend. He has maintained that LSU is his number 1 for the last month or so. Now, he's at A&M this weekend. A&M's also been number 1, so we'll see what happens. But LSU's sitting in a great spot for Lamar Brown. They're also sitting in a great spot for the number 2 safety in the country, number 2 player in the state, Blaine Bradford. Mm-hmm. Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas are very much involved for Blaine Bradford. But I like where LSU stands. Des Ellis is an in-state corner, Josh, that's not as ballyhooed nationally, but I'm logging an On3 RPM in favor of the Tigers for him. The LSU loves him in the secondary. This is another guy that Corey Raymond and company are in the middle of it for. I think they keep Des Ellis in-state. This secondary class could be special. I mean, we talked about Bradford. We talked about Des Ellis. How about Haven Finney Jr.? He is visiting this weekend. He's from Sierra Canyon. He's a reclassified from 2027 to 2026. He was awesome this past weekend at Overtime OT7. He's long, rangy, instinctive, made a lot of plays on the football. Corey Raymond and company, he was one of the first coaches that the Finney family discussed potentially reclassifying, visiting now, got his official visit locked in. USC and LSU look like the top 2, but you got Michigan and Ohio State in play. A few other elite corners that are going to visit with officials, Albert Hill, the 4th, Kerry Adams, Chauncey Kennan. LSU's on the short list for all of those guys, and they're trending up with 4-star safety target Dylan Purder. And per On3's Chad Simmons, LSU leads for Aiden Pouncey. He's an on 300 defensive back that LSU likes at corner from Winter Park, Florida. I also talked to Pouncey. He loved his time in Baton Rouge. So no shortage of terrific DBs that LSU's in play for. And then anytime you talk about an LSU program in recruiting and Brian Kelly, Offensive line's always going to be a major point of emphasis. That is the heart and soul of Brian Kelly football teams. It was one of the strengths of this LSU team this past year. They want to keep it rolling. They already have Bryson Martinez from in-state committed. He's the number 6 prospect in the state. He's the number 8 offensive tackle in the land. Who can they build around him? Well, 5-star Emmanuel Ihenacho was on campus. Manny Ihenacho, he visited this week, had a really good visit. He's at A&M. They're battling Maryland, Georgia, Oregon, some others, but LSU made an impression. The number 2 interior offensive lineman in the land is Darius Gray. He's visiting on Friday. LSU loves him. They're recruiting him as a tackle. LSU was one of his dream offers, loves Coach Brad Davis. South Carolina, Clemson, some of the other programs, Tennessee, that are doing well with Darius Gray, but so is LSU, and I know they'll be excited to have him in Baton Rouge. Zayden Krempin, Bryson Cooley, Ikini Igboko. Those are 3 other blue-chip point-of-attack players that LSU's at the top or near the top for. This class, Josh, is kind of building up in reverse. Normally, you get your quarterback, and then you build around your quarterback. LSU is going to be able to go to the trail and say, we are loaded in the receiver room. We are in on some of the best offensive linemen in the country. We recruited the best running back class in the land last year. Mm-hmm. Don't you want to distribute and play around these guys? Bo Bentley has emerged as the top target. Salina, Texas, state champion, visited earlier in the week, had a fantastic visit with Coach Sloan, Coach Kelly, and company. I think LSU's in the top 3. You got Oklahoma and Ohio State also heavily involved. Then you got Georgia, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Texas Tech. He is in hot demand. LSU making a big impression on him. They're still talking to guys committed elsewhere, from the Diabells to the Jake Fettys to the Keyshawn Hendersons, but it's Bo Bentley right now, and we'll see what happens with those guys committed elsewhere. And then let's talk a couple of defensive targets before we wrap up this LSU segment, Josh. Jamarian Carlton is a top 10 edge rusher that visited over the weekend. LSU moved the needle there. Trenton Henderson is one of their favorite targets at the edge position. He visited last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that. Anthony Tate Jones, 5-star edge from Alabama. He wasn't able to make it in this past weekend because of weather, but he's been to LSU before. They're in the top 3 or 4, Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, some of the others involved for Tank Jones, but LSU's in there. They're really turning up the heat for Deuce Geralds, the defensive tackle from the Peach State. And probably the top linebacker on the board right now is J.J. Bush from Theodore, Alabama. He's a key guy for LSU this cycle.
Steve, a year ago at this time, LSU was sitting there with the number 1 wide receiver in America committed. Now they have Tristan Keys. Last year it was DeCorian Moore. Obviously, DeCorian Moore ends up at Oregon. Do you sense that Tristan Keys' recruitment is going to be a little bit more secure, or is this something that LSU fans are going to have to monitor as the recruiting cycle goes on?
Well, obviously, we're honeymooning right now with Tristan Keys and LSU. So all the chatter and conversation is 100% Bayou Bengal. Now, the people watching the show, us doing the show, know that Tennessee's not going to stop calling. Alabama's not going to stop calling. Miami sure as hell isn't going to stop calling Tristan Keys. LSU had some tough luck on the trail last year with DeCorian Moore and Bryce Underwood, but they also showed the chops to keep DJ Pickett in the fold. And they're prepared to go toe-to-toe. And look, they'll be trying to flip their own guys. We talked about some of those quarterbacks. But right now, I mean, Tristan Keys loves LSU, the track record of success at the position, the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, and just how special that program is, knowing that offense is always going to have a great offensive line and quarterback. Look, we're not predicting a flip 2 days after he committed to LSU here. Teams are going to keep trying to recruit him, but I think right now it's going to be an uphill battle. He loves the Tigers. He's in the fold. LSU's got the number 1 class in the country, and with the names on the board, they got some staying power potentially among those ranks.
Yeah. LSU fans, exciting times. The Tigers are number 1 in the country when it comes to 2026 recruiting. Talk to Steve and I. Is this Tristan Keys number 1 wide receiver commitment gonna stick through signing day? Let us know how you're feeling. Comment section below.